we have a
Yes,
minion
Bruce.
in my under my pergola, and we didn't get a minion this morning. So we decided at Mincha we're going to lane before we daven Mincha, because
Okay.
and I learned about doing this from Rabbi Rakefet, who told that they used to do this with the Ravs when the Rav came from Boston. If he missed the minion, which he sometimes did, they would lane at Mincha.
Bill, you're touching here a very big question, and that is Kriyas Torah a chovas yachid? And does every person have to hear Kriyas Torah? Or is it a chovas tzibur? Meaning when there's a minyan, the minyan has to lane, but it's not that you privately have the obligation to find the laning. Reb Chaim Brisker really thought it's a chovas yachid. And as you mentioned by the Rav, I know many stories describing how Reb Chaim would make an effort to get a Kriyas Torah in the case that he missed it. But the Rav's other grandfather, Rav once told me that Rav Elia Pruzhner, Leo Feinstein, he pointed out to the Rav that there's a Ramban and Milchamis in Megillah in the first chapter, where it would seem from the Ramban that Kriyas Torah is a Chovas Tzibur. I also think it makes more sense. So it really depends upon that. So you can do like the Rav if you want, okay? That's fine with me. Okay. I'm a Baal Chov of you. We yesterday saw the drosha of my great grandfather of Moshe Soloveitchik that he gave at the Chag HaSmicha in 1940. We also heard echoes of the atmosphere of those days. Europe is under fire. They realized that the Torah centers in Europe are in danger and stressed. They're closed down, and like now he has to like encourage the American young rabbis to take upon themselves the task of spreading true Judaism, spreading orthodoxy, and you can hear in amongst his words the difficulties that he feels that they're going to face because they're in a different atmosphere. And we want to finish also with the Divrei Torah, the question that he brings there at the end of his drasha. That's the halachic part, and that is, can a Kohen Gadol read be the Kohen Meshuach Milchama? So I want to bring it to us, okay? Uh, just have to make it smaller a second. Okay, here we go. Here's the Rav Moshe Soloveitchik. Okay, I just want to see everybody. Okay. Wow. Okay. So we are here. Okay. I'm gonna make it a little bigger, okay? So let's read what he writes over here of Moshe Soloveitchik. Benogea leguf hakushya bahalacha. Okay, let's talk some divrei Torah. Nira dine yesh stapek. Im Kohen Gadol kasher likrat parasha mitzad Kohen Gadol. Can the Kohen Gadol himself also be the Kohen Meshuach Milchama? Because it's part of being a Kohen Gadol. Why? So he explains it. How do you become a Meshuach Milchama? Meshuach hints to the Shemin HaMishcha they would put on the head of the Kohen. Now the Kohen Gadol also, Shemin HaMishcha was put on his head. So but it points you to be a Kohen Meshuach Milchama is the fact that you're Nimshach b'Shemin HaMishcha, so every Kohen Gadol qualifies too. Din Meshicha, the Chazina, the Kohen Meshuach Milchama has certain laws which he's like a Kohen Gadol. Kegon Dasur Ba'almana. A Kohen Hedyot can only not marry a woman who's divorced, but he can marry a widow. But a Kohen Gadol cannot marry a widow, and Meshuach Milchama cannot marry a widow too, like a Kohen Gadol. The same way a Kohen Gadol cannot be nitma to his seven relatives. A Kohen Hedyot is not allowed to have tumas mace, but he can be nitma to seven relatives. But a Meshuach Milchama is like a Kohen Gadol. V'im ken, he says, yesh lomar. Therefore, we can say that the Kriyata Parasha, Lobina rak merube bekuna, meaning that the law is, the din is, it cannot be a regular Kohen. But once you're not a regular Kohen, you are or a Meshuach Milchama or a Kohen Gadol, so you can read the parsha. Kohen Gadol bevadai kasher. Why? He has the highest level of the priesthood, of the kahuna. Or, this is the second option, even though the Kohen Meshuach Milchama has to enhance the level of his kahuna, but maybe it's a special appointment. Mikol Makom, he says, Ika, there is, Odin, another halacha, the Be'inam, we require, Sheyeh Meshuach LeMitzvato, Mitzvat Kriyat Parasha. Maybe the Kohen Gadol is not appointed to be the Meshuach Milchama. You can have to be appointed specially to this task. Then he goes to the Gemara we learned already. Vinay besota daf mem bet. Okay, what does the Gemara say? That the same way the shotrim are mamune, you appoint them. So a Kohen Meshuach Milchama has to be appointed, mimune. Asks the Gemara, Ve'ema Kohen Gadol, Ma shoter sheyesh mimune al gabav. Maybe the Kohen Gadol too. So the Gemara answers, no, 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 no. The shoter, has the officer, is somebody above him. Av Kohen sheyesh memune al gabav, but the Kohen Gadol is nobody above him. Now, he suggests that his suffix that he brought before, his chakira, as we say, it's two different ways to read this Gemara. וגם בביאור דברי הגמרא יש להסתפק. אוקיי? נוכל לפרש. לקושיית הגמרא, ואימה Kohen Gadol, maybe how do you read אימה Kohen Gadol? That only a Kohen Gadol, who the be'inan dafka Kohen Gadol. So what is the Gemara's answer? והגמרא metares the meruba bekahuna שיש ממונה על גביו גם כן kasher. Maybe the Gemara's answer, when it asks for Ema Kohen Gadol, is only Kohen Gadol. And the answer, Mashoter Shesh Mamuna al Gabav, means that even somebody who has a Mamuna al Gabav can still be the Meshuach Milchama. But if that's the case, Kohen Gadol still remains kosher for the reading of the Parsha. Oh, maybe no. Perush HaGemara, the Dafka Merubeh Bekuuna, Sheyesh Mamuna al Gabav. Maybe the Gemara says it's a requirement that should be somebody above you, meaning you're appointed within the system specifically for these tasks. Below Kohen Gadol. Why? Because the Be'inan Meshuach LeMitzvato. You have to be appointed actually to be a Meshuach Milchama. And let's conclude with what he says. Sha'alti she'ela zo et pi Adoni Avi Mori ve'Rabbi HaGaon HaChasid. He brought this question to his father, Reb Chaim Brisker. וגם הוא היה קצת כמסתפק מזה. Reb Chaim Brisker wasn't sure what is the right side to take. But he says, Yoter Nata, the Kohen Gadol, Kasher Likriyat Parasha. Reb Chaim thought that the Kohen Gadol can be the Kohen who says the Parsha of Meshuach Milchama. It would seem that Reb Chaim tended to is that the Meshuach Milchama has to be somebody unique, somebody special. But you can be either a Meshuach Milchama, or either you can be the Kohen Gadol, who also is somebody who has a special standard. The people will take his words more seriously, and therefore it's enough that the Kohen Gadol can do it too. Okay, I think this is enough for this question. I suggest we continue in the Gemara. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes, good. Okay, so let's screen the Gemara. The Gemara now, I'll tell you what it's doing. The Gemara is, I want to go back to a Gemara we already read, but I want to make some comments on it. And that's the Gemara describing that it's said twice. Okay, I'm going back here. We are over here. Okay, let's close this. I'll put the English too. Okay, English. Okay, let's just a moment. We'll do this. Oh, that's English. Okay, so now let's do it together. Okay, what does the Gemara say? Here we are. Okay, we were here. The Gemara says that the Kohen would talk twice. Look what it says over here. Tanu Rabbanan, we read this last time, 2 times ago, but I'll repeat it. Pa'amayim medaber imam. Twice the Kohen would talk to the people. Achat basfar v'achat b'milchama. Meaning first time he would talk to them when it would be called last time shitchei kinus, where they gathered together to go to war, and the second time actual at war. And what does the Braita describe? Basfar, meaning when they gather together at the border. Mahu Omer, what does he say? So the Uh, he says, Shimu divrei malchei milchama v'chizru b'milchama, meaning he reads to them the regulations of the war, where he calls for all those who can return and not be part of the battalion. He calls the people who got married, who built a house, who planted a vineyard. He tells them to go home. And Bamilchama, Omer, when they come closer to the battlefield, there he says, Al Yirach Levavchem, Al Tiru. There he encourages them not to be afraid. Now, in order to understand the Chiddush in this Gemara, I want to point out to two things which appear over here. Let's see the psukim in the Torah again. That will help us to realize what's the Chiddush over here. Okay? So let's go back to the psukim. And basically, there's a description of a psukim of two different statements that were said to the people. And what the chiddush in this braita is, first of all, who says them, and second of all, the order in which they were said. Because when we go to the Gemara, to the psukim, it would seem that first the Torah describes when you get close to war. So the Kohen talks to the Am and he says to them the words we already read, the words of encouragement, the words that tell them to believe in the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And then the officers, the policemen talk, v'dibru shotrim el ha'am, and they talk about those who build the house, etc. So in the psukim, the first statement to be declared is the Kohen's words, and later on the Torah describes the shotrim. Now we go back to our Gemara. The Gemara has two chidushim. One is that the Gemara reverses the order. First, the Gemara says that you say, Mi aish asher bana bait. That you say, that's what it would seem from the Gemara. You don't say that at the battlefield. You say that before they get to the battlefield. You know, when you come to the Yamach, you know, you call everybody over. Then you have the shalishut there, you know, those who are in charge of who to make you a chayal. If you stay, you go home, whatever. So over there they decide, and later on you only take those who fought, who are intended to fight, and and to them the Kohen talks. Now it makes a lot of sense what the Gemara says, but you have to ask yourself, why is it in reverse order than the Torah? Well, I want to hear. Do you have any idea, anybody? I mean, why would Chazal come and describe it in a different order, a reverse order than the Torah? Let the Torah write like Chazal. But I think it's easy. No, not easy.
That it's chutcha, knowing what your rights are,
Again, I didn't hear. I'm sorry. Please,
knowing what your rights are.
Jerry, please again.
Perhaps they want to impress what your rights are before you actually get started.
Okay. I'm not sure I still, even though you said it three times, I'm still not sure it's clear to me. So I'll try to say what I understood. Okay.
Maybe
Yes,
it's
please stand. Yes.
maybe it's to show that in a way that the order of the Torah shouldn't be understood that they are in order of importance. Maybe they're all equal, so therefore Chazal did it the other way, so it doesn't really make a difference. There's no priority in the order.
I think there is priority in the order. Look, what the Gemara says makes sense, right? What sense does it make that when if you were I was in the army, you come to where they tell you to come, okay? And over there they stand there and you have a table with the shalishim, you know, all the officers who are in charge of uh, of deciding you can go home, you can stay, and it makes a lot of sense that first you take care and say, okay, you will stay. And those who go home, send them home before they go to the battlefield. That makes a lot of sense, no? Meaning, you come to
Yes,
the Shalishut, the Kudat Yatzvut it is called. You come to the Yamach, okay, let's decide if you. And so, what Chazal described makes sense logically from the point of view of how to actually do it. But if I go to the Torah and I ask myself, I want to now raise a general question, and I want to share with you the way I view it. But I know there are other ways to view it, but I want to explain to you at least the way I do it because I'm giving the share, okay? Uh, we, I would say because I believe in Torah Shebaal Peh, therefore I don't expect necessarily always Torah Shebaal Peh and Torah Shebichtav to say the same thing. Because if they say the same thing, I don't understand why we need two. Meaning, if there are two Torot, I believe in Torah Shebichtav and Torah Shebaal Peh. So it would seem that Torah Shebichtav wants to teach me something. But if Torah Shebaal Peh is teaching me what to do, how actually to implement it, so what is the role? What is the task of Torah Shebichtav? Now, I very much I like an idea that it appears in the name of the Vilna Gaon in a book called no, it's his book on the Torah.
Eliyahu,
What?
Aderet Eliyahu.
Aderet Eliyahu on Mishpatim. Where in Aderet Eliyahu on Mishpatim, he says it's like a stamp, like a chotemet, that you want to put into teeth. In antiquity, when they wanted to make a stamp, think of a Achashverosh. So what would they do? They would have teeth. They would have like something that dries later on, like clay, and they would put the stamp inside, and then they would put it on the letter and seal the letter like with wax. Okay, it's a similar way of doing it. Now, if you want on the stamp that the letters should be read properly, you have to make the stamp in reverse order of the letters. I mean, you have to make it from left to right. You ever see in your car that the word ambulance on the front of an ambulance is reversed? It's from right to left. So in the mirror, when you mirror the view, so you can read the word ambulance properly. So you write it in the opposite way, which actually you read it. I'm sure you're familiar with what I'm saying. Right. In Zoom, it's the same issue, If you don't mirror the picture, you can mirror so you will read everything in my room opposite, okay? So I mirrored the picture, okay? So that's why everything works out over here, okay? So the Vilna Gaon says the following, it's a beautiful idea. The Torah Shebichsav is the chotemet, is the stamp, and the Torah Shebaal Peh is the wax when you actually do it. And many times they don't have the same way of viewing it. Same way we have two eyes, we have two eyes, and really each eye sees separately. Later on, our vision goes together. I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago, I had a diplopia, meaning which each eye I saw double. That's the real way you see, Really, each eye sees differently. Just that they come together. So it's two different visions. If you accept this idea, so I would say the following: Torah Shebichtav gives us the values of the Torah. And the Torah Shebaal Peh is telling us how to implement them in real life. And many times, applying a value is not done exactly in the same order as I would say, the way it looks to you when you want to talk about your values. I'll give you an idea. Okay, Hashavas Aveda. When you read the psukim in the Torah, all the Torah has to say return avedot. It's all it says. Ashev teshivim, return. Okay. Then you read Mishnah Baba Metzia. What do you discover? Elu Metziot Shelo, Elu Sheina Chayav La'achriz. What does that mean? The Torah wants to give the value with 10 exclamation marks. You find an aveda, return it. But Torah Shebichal Peh asked a very simple question. But every time you find a lost object, you can find the owner. Maybe there are some circumstances we have to take into account. So the Torah Shebaal Peh is asking, how do you do it? The Torah Shebichsav wants to give me the values, but in order to give the values, sometimes you give them with exclamation marks, and you don't necessarily present them in the logical order of doing them. Because many times, the way you do it, it sometimes minimizes the clarity of the value. So I'm returning now to the Kohen Mishuach Milchama. I think the center of the Parsha, the message the Torah wanted to give us is not to be afraid. The Torah wanted to transmit to us a message that you should, when you face war, when you face challenge, when you face mighty enemies, the Torah is trying to transfer to us the historical memory of Kriyas Yamsuf, and what the Torah is trying what the Torah is really trying to say to us is the words of the Kohen should echo in us. Yes, the Torah says we know that not everybody can do this. We know that, okay? And since we know that not everybody can do that, something got lost over here, okay, just a moment, okay. And since we know that not everybody can do that, so therefore, what does the Torah say? So the Torah says, therefore, some people will send home. But if you start and say, okay, you go home, you're afraid, you're not afraid. Know what the message comes? It's okay to be afraid. Some are afraid, some aren't afraid. No, the Torah wants to say, don't be afraid. Okay, that's what the Torah wants to say. So the Torah starts with the words of the Kohen. I mean, the Torah, the major message it wants to transmit to us is echoed through the words of the Kohen. So the Torah begins with the words of the Kohen. Then it says, you know what? Some footnotes. But when you ask yourself, not what's the message you want to transmit, when you ask yourself a different question, you ask yourself, how do I do it actually? What I take everybody to the battlefield and the Kohen talks to them, and then I send home some people. It doesn't make any sense to do that, okay? So therefore, what Chazal say is first you do the Miya'ish Asher Bana Bayit, and then those who remain, them you take to the battlefield, or then the Kohen will give him his big speech. That's I think is an explanation of why the Torah presents it from one perspective and why the Torah Shabbat Peh gives another perspective. I'm sharing with you the second chiddush here, because in the Torah it would seem that the words of the Mia Isha Shabbat Bayit are said by the Shotrim, but the Braita says the Kohen says them. Now the Gemara later in Daf Mem Gimel, okay, next page, the Gemara will say that remember they had no microphones, so the Gemara says that the Kohen would say the Mia Isha Shemana Bayit, and the Shotrim would echo it in a loud voice. That's how they like return the Shotrim here to be those who also make these declarations. But there is a chiddush that they involve the Kohen also Mia Isha Shemana Bayit. And I think a question we would have to ask ourselves is why do they involve the Kohen in saying this? To some extent, when you let the Kohen say it, so the same way the Kohen is uh, is the chaplain who says, "Me, Aisha, not to be afraid." So also when you send home, they make him being present. Okay, but that's something to try to explore. But I want to show to you is that the Rambam did not accept all that was said here. And if the Rambam describes it differently than the way was described to me by now, which seems to be the way Rashi read the Gemara, because look how the Rambam presents it. Okay, we're taking us to Rambam in Hilchot Melachim u'Milchamot, the seventh chapter. Okay, the Rambam first of all describes the Meshuach Milchama. First of all, he says we're going to have to talk about this some other time. Echad milchemet mitzvah v'echad milchemet reshut, meaning in both milchemet reshut and milchemet mitzvah, the Rambam says we appoint a kohen to talk to the people in the time of war. B'manim kohen ledaber la'am bishat milchama. The Rambam describes how he's moshchin oto b'shemen hamishcha v'zo nikra meshuach milchama. Now look what the Rambam says. Shnei pa'amim medaber meshuach milchama el am. Okay, this is our Braita. Twice the meshuach milchama talks to the am. Achat pasfar, meaning one when they are on the borderline. Be'et sheyotzin kodim shiarchu milchama. Now look what the Rambam says that he says. Omer alehem mi ha'ish asher nata kerem. Okay, till now it's like what we saw. כשישמע יחזור מלכי המלחמה, ואחת בערכי המלחמה אומר אל תיראו ואל תחבזו. Okay? So the Rambam till now is the Braita. Okay? Meaning, you say at this far, Mi ha'ish asher bana kerem, and later on, at the battlefield, the Rambam describes that he says al tiru v'al tachbezu. But then he continues, be'et she'orchin ha'marachot, when they make order of all the soldiers. V'hem krevim li lachem. You order soldiers. An army unit has to be organized. I mean, how you know how to spread your soldiers, your tanks. That's eventually how effective they will be. Okay, so when they would put them in rows, and organize them in units. The army is very organized in different units. It's always the number three kitot. You have 3 machlakot. Then you have 3 plugot, agdudim, okay? So that's orchei milchama, that we organize them, okay? So look what he says. Meshuach milchama omed b'makom gavoa, he stands very high. V'kol ha'marachot lefanav, all the soldiers are in front of him. And then he says to them, Omer alem b'lashon hakodesh. Look what he says. Shema Yisrael atem krevim hayom lamilchama. We're familiar with this. He says they're all the statements of the Kohen that we have learned. And then he says, Ad kan meshuach milchama omer. I mean, he would first say it in Hebrew. And then who was his microphone? His loudspeaker? Kohen acher tachtav mashmi'a l'chol ha'am b'kol milchama. But then take a look what he says. ואחר כך אומר משוח מלחמה, מי האיש אשר בנה בית וכולי, או מי האיש אשר נטע כרם, או מי האיש אשר הרס אישה, עד כאן משוח מלחמה, מדבר והשוטר משמיע לכל העם בקול רם. The Rambam describes how when they would be at the battlefield, the Kohen Meshuach Milchama would say a second time, מי האיש אשר בנה בית. Meaning, unlike what I described to you before, that Mi Eish Asher Bana Bayit, you only say at the sfar, you only say it at the borderline, and you send home everybody. And now you only take those soldiers who will actually be involved in combat. And to them at the battlefield, the Kohen says, Shema Yisrael. In the Rambam, you say twice the Mi Eish Asher Bana Bayit Chadash. First time, it said, see over here, at the Sfar, okay? First time at the Sfar, the Kohen says it, and then he takes everybody with him to war, okay? Even those who are Bana Bait Chadash, and the second time at the battlefield, he says again after Shema Yisrael, Mi Eish Asher Bana Bait, and only then they send them home, okay? V'achar shechozrin, kol hachozrin melchei milchama, they send them home over there. Who noticed this? The Kesef Mishneh. Now we have to finish, but what I will say is, I'll tell you what the Rambam gains. Something very simple. According to the Rambam, the two statements, one, Shema Yisrael, and the other one, Mia Isha Sheban Abayit, were actually said in the same order described in the Torah. The Kohen at the battlefield, what would the Kohen do? The Kohen would say first Shema Yisrael, Atem Krivim Hayom LaMilchama, Al Tireu V'Al Ta'arzu, and then a second time, and then he would say a second time, Mei Ish Asher Bana Bait Chadash. So apparently the Rambam didn't want to accept what I said before. Let's totally reverse the order and first say the second statement and then the first statement. The Rambam basically retained the Torah Sheba'al Peh, accepts that you say these two statements in the order they were said in the Torah. Basically, according to the Rambam, Mei Ish Asher Bana Bait Chadash was said twice. It was said first at the Yamach, at the Shitchei Kinus, and second time it was said at the battlefield. So apparently he wanted to retain the Torah Sheba'al Peh should be as close as possible to Torah Shebichtav. On the other hand, let's see the price that he pays. What's the logic of saying it twice? Or what's the logic of taking to battlefield people who you already decided they won't fight? I mean, why do you take them there, you know? I mean, why not send them home from this far? I mean, why not leave them in the Yamach to do some work there, you know? I mean, why say it again? So that's a question I'm going to leave you for tomorrow to think about, okay? Beseder? So please give thought to that question. On the one hand, the Rambam minimizes the gap between Torah Shebichtav and Torah Sheba'al Peh. On the other hand, does it make any sense what he suggests or what he offers us to do? Okay, so
Also,
yes,
you
please,
can
Bruce.
ask, why does he have to have him speak at all at the Safak? Why can't he just have it one time at the battlefield?
It's a good question. I mean, it's all the same question. Meaning
I mean,
when you read the Braita, you get the impression we reverse the order. If you say Mia, you send them home, and now you take everybody to battlefield. Okay, Nua. Okay, but what happens according to the Rambam? Okay, so we have to give it some thought. I hope we can have a shiur tomorrow. Okay, so at the same time, and I want to wish everybody to be okay. Watch yourselves. Okay.